Hello everyone, in this video we're going to create a couple of custom actions for Game Creator. The intent of these actions is to be able to call out values from other assets. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. I would like to start off by saying that I am by no means an expert on C#. I'm actually quite terrible at it. What I'm going to show you today is really intended for people like me who are, well, terrible at it, but still want to create a couple of custom actions for some of the third-party assets they're using. So in this video, I'll be using the vegetation engine as an example, simply because it's, well, really easy to see straight away what the impact is. And then I'll show you how easily you can use this, well, pretty much template for a lot of other third-party assets. Now, I got quite a bit of help initially creating this first action. So there are things I can explain you about the actual scripting, and there's things that, well, you just have to take on faith pretty much. So first things first, we're going to right click and we're going to go to Game Creator, Developer, and create a simple action. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my first script that is going to impact this one. So TVE stands for the vegetation engine, seasons. There we go. Now, by doing this, we already have a pretty basic template set up for Game Creator actions, and that's pretty awesome. Obviously, it helps a lot. Now, what we also need is this script, so TVE global seasons. So I'm going to look that up. There we go. I'm going to open it up. And the reason we need this as well is we need some information. So what are we going to be using here is we need to reference a couple of the namespaces. And I'm going to change this default action a bit by copying this namespace over and, well, basically replacing it with this one. There we go. As not everything actually needs to be used for what we're doing here for referencing to those third-party assets, so we'll be referencing to it here. And in this namespace, I'm actually just going to be using my own, so I'll just call it RVR, and that's it. Then next up, we need to reference, well, we don't need this one actually, I'm just going to remove that, and we need to reference the namespace of the vegetation engine, which is the vegetation engine. And basically what we're doing here is we're making sure that we can grab information from these basically these systems. So we need to grab information from Game Creator as we're creating actions for Game Creator. We need to grab information from Unity, obviously, as we're using Unity, and we need to grab information from the vegetation engine as we're creating an action for the vegetation engine. What we're going to do with this very first action is we're basically going to be creating an action that allows us to change this season. So we want to be able to change the season with an action. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So what we need to do here, and I'll be honest, there's a couple of things I'll be able to properly explain. There's a couple of things I won't be able to properly explain. So yeah, just like me, just basically, follow along. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to change this, and basically what we're going to do here is we're going to decide how we get that information. So I can show you something here. So what we're going to do is when we go to RVR, we basically see a couple of my custom actions. And what we want to do here is we want to create this drop down, so target game object. And here we drag in the object with the script on it, and and then we'd be able to change the value. So this is going to be the first line, creating this basically this drop down menu, which you've seen in most likely so many different game creator actions. So we're going to use game object. I'm pretty sure you can also do it with the variables. Never actually tried. So just follow along for this. Don't ask me to explain this because I won't be able to. We're going to do a target game object, and basically if you inspect a couple of the custom actions or just actions from Game Creator, you'll be seeing this being done several times. So that's where it comes from. And let's finish that off. So basically this entire line allows us to just get that information the way Game Creator does it, so that little drop down menu we saw, and there we go. Now you can also use Invoker obviously if you're using the trigger and actions on the object with the actual action, with the actual script. But yeah, this first line is basically just getting that information, so how we're able to drag that in. And that's pretty much all there is to it, so referencing to the source in the action. Then next up, what we're going to do is basically a bit of styling. So, kind of deciding what the action looks like, and putting some limitations in place as well. So first things first, I want it to look neat and tidy, so we'll do space, and we're going to add a bit of spacing just to make it look a bit better. Then another really important thing is we need to set a range as well. So we're going to be referencing this float, but we can only go from 0 to 4. Yes, we can also go in between. As you can see, there's some limits, but we can't go further. And there's a reason for that as well. When we have a look at the seasons, as you can see, the seasons by default go from 0 to 4, and that's it. That's literally the entire range. So what we need to do is we need to set that range so that we can't exceed that. Now this is just for ease of use pretty much, just to make sure that you can't accidentally, set the wrong values. Now we need to set that range as well. So we need to set that, we can't go further, and I'm doing 20, I don't know why I did 20, there we go. So from 0 to 4, and that's pretty much it. Now we need to reference the actual value that we're referencing to, and the important thing is going to be that we need to reference to a public value, and we need to reference to this public float. And what I do is literally copy that over. So Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V obviously would have been faster. And yes, that means that for me it's just going to be called season as well, and just keeping it simple like that. If like me, you're not a coder, I would definitely suggest also just keeping it simple. Like, if you're not a coder, keep things simple, don't make things too complicated. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to leave this exactly as is. We're not going to change anything here. So that was already set up by the Game Creator action, and all we're going to do is change this. And basically this is making sure that we're going to be able to get that information from the correct script. Now the first time we're doing this, it seems like it's a lot of work, but after we're done with this action, I'll show you how easy it is to then simply create a new action with so much ease. And it's going to be so simple. So obviously that's what we all want. We want it to be simple. We don't want it to be something that becomes too complicated. There we go. And again, by all means, I'm not an expert on this whatsoever. If you know a better way to do this, please share it in the comments afterwards. But this is really intended for people like me who are absolutely terrible at this. There we go. So we're almost out of the part where so this is all just literally going to be mandatory stuff that we'll need to use. And then now we're coming to the part that you would basically need to change depending on the script we're using. So right now we need to reference to the name of the script. We looked it up, so that's the script, TV Global Seasons, and that's what we need to reference now. And it's not that seasons that you see mentioned there, because that's the name I gave this action, but this is the original script where we get the information from. So out of TVE Global Seasons, then we're going to create a local variable. So that is just going to be Global Seasons. I think that's, again, why complicate things? Just keep it simple. And then we're going to reference to that again. And what we're going to do now is we're going to basically mention that this float is the same as the float in the original script. And again, that's why I mentioned, keep it simple. Don't make things too complicated unless you really know what you're doing, and then you wouldn't be watching this video anyway. Let's be real. And there we go. And that's it. That's literally all there is to it. So now we've created the action itself, and again, in a bit I'll explain what you basically would need, because this is pretty much a template. So I'll explain what you need to change, and I'll show you as well if you want to create a new action. So here we get to choose where we can find this action in Game Creator. So right now, if I go to Actions and I do Add Action, you will see this little folder, RVR, and there's my custom actions that we have in here. And yeah, so that's the name. So RVR and TV Seasons, and there we go. So I'm going to hit save. We don't see any errors, so let's hope it all works. It's going to compile the script now, so making sure that it's all working. And if it's not working, well, we wouldn't be able to draw on any actions anyway, so you'll get an error, obviously. And there we go, TV Seasons. So right now I'm not going to use this. I'm just going to show you that when we hit play in this scene, nothing's actually going to happen. So we're going to stay in the winter setting. We go to seasons. We're in winter, and that doesn't change. As you can see, it just remains like that. Cool. So now we're going to add our action here. TV Seasons, game object, and we're going to drag in that object with the script, and we're going to set it to season 2. Season 2 is summer, so it looks different, really different. And I'm going to stay on these actions and hit play. And the reason I added the 2-second wait is just so we can actually see, the action taking place. Wait, and now it's summer. And when we go here, it's summer. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So really cool, but now I want to change, for example, overlay. And the reason I'm picking this one is because we have some color things here as well, which is really cool. Color is often one of the things you can't change with call methods that easily anyway. So yeah, it's nice to have this one. And it'll show you that there's really not much of a difference when it comes to calling these values, if it's either, a float like this, or color value, or texture, doesn't really matter. So yeah, let's do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one, which will throw some errors, of course. And the reason I'm duplicating this is because I want to show how it really is a template, and basically how much time you can save. So we're going to open this one, going to close these now. We need to find the global overlay as well. So TVE global overlay, there we go. Perfect. So what we want from this overlay is, I'm just going to grab the 2 first ones, because honestly, again, it doesn't really matter. You can add all of them, just be simple. So we're just going to do 2, just so I can show you how you can do multiple, and how you can do different ones pretty much. So here we have the duplicate of seasons. Now this name needs to match the name I gave the script, which is overlay. So we're just going to change that to overlay. Then next up, we need to change the name of the action in Game Creator as well. So that now needs to become overlay. And yeah, we have the basics in place. Now we're still using the vegetation engine, so that's not going to change. We are, however, referencing a new script, so that needs to change here. But let's first start off with the actual, let's start from the beginning. So change the names, obviously. Then grab the new value, and we're going to start off with intensity. And as you can see, intensity has a range from 0 to 1. So we also want to keep that range to only go from 0 to 1. So let's change that. There we go. And then what we need to do now is we need to, well, change this part. So again, this all remains the same, but now we need to change this to the new script name, and that's TVE global overlay. That's the original script. Then we need to change our local variable, which I'll just call overlay, and yeah, overlay. There we go. Now we need to reference our public value here. So we'll just copy it here and copy it here. Again, keep things simple. If you're watching this video still at this point, just like me, you're terrible at it, so I'd suggest keeping things simple. So let's hit save, and when we go here now, I'm going to remove this one, the seasons. I don't need the seasons. So I'm going to go to overlay, and it's not there, so I must have done something wrong. There must be an error somewhere. So let's check overlay, overlay. Pretty sure I have my errors off. Oh, I made a spelling mistake, so sorry about that. You really have to watch out that you don't use the capitals. It's quite sensitive in that sense. There we go. So now when I go here, we will have our action. So pretty good way to see straight away if it actually works in the first place anyway, because it just won't pop up. So now we're going to change overlay, and we're just going to change the intensity to 0, which is, what you're seeing now is 1. So after 2 seconds, it's just going to become 0, and the white should disappear. And it doesn't disappear, but the intensity did go to 0, so apparently intensity is not really doing what I expected it to do. So the value did change, but apparently if it's on, it's on. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so the value did not actually do what I expected it to do. However, the action is working, so that's fine. So let's continue with the color. So we can actually try that out straight away. So what we want to do now is we want to have that color value as well. So as you can see here, we have public color. So we're going to copy that over as well. I do want to differentiate this, so I will keep that spacing here. There we go. So keep it nice and clean. And then we're going to do color. Now, something I didn't mention before, but these are going to be the default values the action will have. That doesn't actually mean anything, as you can just change them to whatever you want. But if by default you want intensity to be 1, then put it at 1. So the default color white, that's fine, as this is actually the overlay by default will be used for winter, so I'm cool with that being the default value. And now we basically just need to reference that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this and we're going to paste this. Now we need to change a couple of things. We don't need to change this, as the script is still the same script. We're just grabbing a different value there. But we need to remove our local variable that we created. We'll just do color. And it's just a local variable, so color. And then we need to reference overlay color, and overlay color. There we go. So let's now save this. It's going to compile our new addition to the action. Oh, not gonna lie, a bit surprising that intensity doesn't actually seem to be doing anything. Or does it? No, I'm not really seeing it. Cool. Anyway, let's go here. So our action is updated. I'm just to be sure, I'll remove it. And there we go. So what we're going to do now is we'll drag in overlay anyway, and we're just going to change it to red. Yeah, bright red. And then after 2 seconds, it will become red. And as you can see as well, our default value is now set to 1, which is really nice. And then the color changes and it becomes red. So yeah, pretty cool. So that's literally all you have to do. You know, if you want to grab different values like this, again, just, you know, copy that over from the original and just put it in there. No, this is not the cleanest way to do it. It's not, etc. But it works. And, you know, if like me, you're not good at coding, but you still want to create a couple of custom actions simply because they don't exist yet, which is what I did as well. It's actually a really easy way to fill in those gaps for the project you're working on. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do. Now, like I mentioned as well, is you know, obviously I used this as an example, because as you can see, it's, you know, a great example to use. But I changed for an asset called mesh effects. I wanted to change the color of those particle effects as well. And what I did is I simply, again, duplicated it and just renamed this the namespace that we're using, because we're not using, oh, let me remove this. We're not using the vegetation engine. We're using mesh effects, which had this namespace. Change the name to match here, change the name of the action, and change the name of the script you're getting it from, your local variable. And yeah, you know, and this was actually, the public value was pretty much called the same as well. And that's how simple it is. And that's from a completely different asset, which is, you know, mesh effects. And just like that, you're able to create a custom action for that as well. So again, really simple, not the cleanest way, but a really effective way to easily create custom actions for loads of third-party assets, as long as they have public values. Now, I'll be adding the template in the description as well, but it is useful to just, you know, watch this just to make sure you know exactly what you need to change. And again, by all means, don't go asking me tons of C# questions. I'm not the person for that. But yeah, I hope this was useful for you, and I hope this can fill in some of the gaps you've been having. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.